Hi, David Odell with Odell Complete Concrete. This is part 2 of a 2-part series. And this is the day after we poured. And now we're going to lay out a decorative saw cut pattern. What we're going to do is a 1-foot perimeter around this patio area, a border. And then we're going to do a saw cut diagonal to the house in the middle. And we're going to do 4-foot squares. So right now, what I'm trying to do is find the center. I'm going to find the center of this whole area. I'm going to snap a line perpendicular to the house, parallel to the walls, and that's going to be my center line. Although these walls weren't parallel, so that made it a little more difficult. They were off a couple inches. They weren't actually straight or square with the house, so I've just had to find the center line. I'm going to work my diamond grid out to the border. So I'm going to use a dry line for this. That way I can take some more measurements and see how it's going to lay out before I start snapping lines. Now, fortunately, this center line worked out for the opening. It might have been off an inch or so, but visually it wasn't noticeable. So that center line is not a saw cut line. That's just center line of the grid. Now I want to go with 4-foot squares turned on an angle, and I want them to be hitting that center line from point to point of the squares. Will hit that center line. Now that other line I just snapped there is the top of my first point of the square. And when you want to figure your diagonal layout, you know, the distance, like say you have a square that's 4 foot by 4 foot square. So what you want to do when you're trying to figure out your diagonal measurement in a square or a rectangle is you take one side and you multiply that by itself. Say it's 4 foot, one side is 4 foot, so it's 4 foot times 4 foot. Say your other side is 6 foot. Well, it's 6 foot times 6 foot. Then you add those two together. Once you add those two things together, you'll want to get the square root of that, and now you know the diagonal between, you know, from corner to corner of any shape. So right now, all these 45-degree angle lines should hit that center line every time we turn a 90 on it. Then you know that everything's square. Now, since all the water in this patio has to drain out through the gate, that first square there where I centered it on the opening, I'm going to cut that right through the band, and that'll also act as a channel for the water to drain out and down the step, because I'll cut up the face of that step also. So that'll act as a crack control plus water. It'll funnel the water off in one spot off of that stair. So there it is. There's the layout. Now I'm just going to use the worm drive skill saw, Mag 77, because it's lighter. Same power but lighter. And then I'm going to use the straightest 2x4 I can find. And I'm going to run my guard of my skill saw on top of this piece of plastic. That way I don't scratch the concrete, and it slides a lot easier with less resistance, so it makes it easier. It's almost like it's on wheels when you put it on this plastic. Now there's a couple joints I'm going to cut deeper. 2 joints, like this particular joint right here in the center of this radius, I'm going to cut that one in about 3/4 to an inch deep, and the rest will only be 1/2 inch or so deep. The ones I cut deeper will actually be the control joints as well as decorative. That little radius there, I just freehanded that with the right angle grinder. 4-inch diamond blade on that. That skill's got a 7 and a quarter, maybe it's just a 7-inch diamond blade on that. So I cut the band first, that way I can stop my diagonal grid without going into the band itself. And this concrete varies from about 8 inches in depth all the way to about a 5-inch as a minimal. And since this is the next day, we're being real careful what we drag on the concrete, how we step. So anything you do at this point can affect the finish. So we'll sweep all the dust off into the planter where we can scoop it up. Then any excess residual stuff we'll just pressure wash off. So we captured probably 90% of the dust in that planter area. And now we're just going to do the fine tuning with the pressure washer. Fine detail work. We didn't bring that grid up through this side yard because it just wasn't enough space in there to make it look right. So just by adding these simple saw cuts like this, it makes it look a lot more decorative and just really spruces it up, the whole place, when you throw a pattern down like this on concrete. Now there's the cut I ran down the face. So all the water, basically, whenever you get condensation or a little drip from overnight dew, it'll funnel its way through these saw cuts and come down here. Instead of leaving a drip stain, it'll go right through that saw cut and out. And that points the way into the entrance. It's kind of like a pointer as well. Yeah, a stain on something like this would look good too. You can always do acid etch and stain in 30 days or so. Once it cures out, give it a little modeling. Oh, by the way, I did cut at the bottom of each stair. Every riser, I took a saw cut at the bottom of those stairs because that's where it always has a tendency to crack because it gets thinner at that point. So at the bottom of each step, I put a saw cut in there, and I used my grinder on that, my little 4-inch blade, right angle grinder. I have to say they did a really nice job on the stucco, that's for sure. That thing was as smooth as glass. There it is. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next. Have a good day.